Hey everybody, welcome back to Doc Loyal Talks Comics. And I saw a bit of news last night that McFarlane Toys is going to be doing one of its action figures based on the second cover to Emerald Twilight. So I couldn't find that particular issue in my stack at the moment. So we'll look at the cover to issue 1, or part 1 here, issue number 48. I just want to say that that particular series of action figures is apparently important covers. And so there's no more important cover than the picture of Hal with his 10 rings of power with just a maniacal look on his face. It got me thinking about how many people, myself included, who I had just started reading Green Lantern, actually with issue number 50. So I started with the issue where Hal went AWOL and turned into Parallax. And I didn't have this issue or issue 49 for quite a while, but both of those issues were excellent. And so a lot of people got really mad when they replaced Hal with a younger version, trying to kind of Spider-Man him in there and make Kyle Rayner the new hip guy that we could all relate to. I didn't like Kyle for a long time just because of that, because I liked Hal. And I guess really I got into issue number 50 because it had a glow-in-the-dark cover on it, with Hal flying out of the central core on Oa, the central battery on Oa. But this story, if you never read it, it's a tale about loss, grief, and how one man who has done the right thing for so many years selflessly put others in front of himself for so many decades, finally chooses to do something for himself and then is promptly punished for it. In issue 46, during the reign of the Superman story, then Hank Henshaw, the cyborg Superman, and Mongol created an engine in Coast City, effectively killing everybody from Hal's hometown. And at the time, he seemed to be not okay with it, but he seemed to at least be mentally stable about it. A lot of people seeing their city pretty much nuked out of existence to create something else. It would cause them to lose their sanity. It really would. But Hal seemed to hold it together. Didn't seem that it was going to shake his world apart. Well, GJ, who was writing the title at the time, who we won't talk about because of law enforcement, ended up getting tossed off the book because of low sales. They were about to cancel the title if they couldn't get a real spark behind it and get it, glowing brightly green again. Well, they handed it off to Ron Morris as writer, and M.D. Bright, who had been the penciler on the title, as far as I remember, was leaving the title as well. So he was to be replaced by a newcomer and up-and-comer Darryl Banks. And this cover is Banks' first work on the series. He didn't do the interiors. It was still M.D. Bright in this issue. And the next issue was also another fill-in, or was a fill-in artist. And then Bright made his triumphant debut with pencils by Darryl Banks. Bright. It's a long day, guys. Darryl Banks made his penciling debut on issue 50, with M.D. Bright stepping away, and Romeo Tanghal doing inks. And the point I'm trying to get to is this story, for all the hate that it received, it was put together pretty much overnight. You can read a bunch of old issues of Wizard or something, and it'll explain to you exactly how quickly this three-parter came together. And I've got to admit, that even though I didn't like it at the time, I didn't like how it ended, it did away with Hal and it brought this new Green Lantern on board. These 3 issues are some of the most exciting stuff that had come out of this title in years. And this copy I actually got signed last year at the Memphis Comic Expo by Ron Mars and Daryl Banks. They both happened to be there. So that was really cool. That marked off 2 off of my checklist. But to see the downfall of Hal so realistically portrayed, even though it, kind of came out of left field, he was destroying other lanterns to take their rings. Because in his own mind, it would exacerbate his own willpower and make him stronger, so that he could go to Oa and take on the Guardians themselves, because they were the ones that sought to punish him for using the ring for personal gain. That is one of the parts of the creed of the Green Lantern Corps, is when you get gifted with this ring, you only use it for good, and you only use it for selflessness, not selfishness. That's why Sinestro got kicked out of the Corps, because he thought his way was better than the Guardians, and he started doing things his way. So if you want a really fine example of characterization, of pain, of loss, of grief, of how to deal with it and how not to deal with it, this book here is an absolute perfect storyline. And years later, they actually explained away that Hal was still always Hal, but he was taken over by an entity of fear called Parallax. And Parallax had been inside of the Central Core battery for millennia. That's why the ring couldn't affect anything yellow. That's why Hal had such a hard time defeating Mongol in issue 46, although he also had a busted wing. So his left arm was in a sling and broken. But this was the beginning of that Jeff Johns run of Parallax and all of the emotional spectrum and everything that came from it. It was birthed right here in his 3-parter Emerald Twilight. So if you guys get a chance to pick this up, or if you've already read it, let me know down in the comments, and let's talk about it. See what you thought. See if you thought it was one of the greatest stories. It was kind of the trifecta of the death of Superman, Nightfall with Batman getting his back broken, and then the fall of Hal. So it was all 3 of those that kind of set the cornerstone of the early 90s DC universe to where it was at. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and we will catch you guys next go around in the next video.